Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. Great. This is an unprecedented turnout for a historic Harrisburg preservation celebration, and I want to thank you all for coming. I'm David Morrison, the acting executive director of Historic Harrisburg, and I want to begin by saying that this is a tremendous celebration for Midtown, and so many of you in this room are not only toasting Midtown, you're part of who is being toasted, so it's really an amazing experience for all of us. Before we focus exclusively on Midtown, though, I want to just mention that historic preservation and our interests spread throughout the city and even beyond the city and the region. And there's just one aspect of historic preservation that has happened just in the last couple of weeks that I think is worthy of mention, and that is the rescue and preservation of two mansions on Front Street in the 2900 block. And Sally Wilson and Mike Wilson, the new owners of Manor on Front, are here. We've toured those houses and they are beautiful. So I want to salute you, Mike and Sally. For 10 years, we didn't think we'd ever be saying that. I also want to express our thanks to Josh and Rachel Kessler, proprietors and the visionaries for this amazing facility, for hosting us today and for their generosity. Josh invited the Historic Harrisburg Board to come on a sawdust tour a couple of weeks before this opened to the public, and it wasn't 5 minutes before we said, we have to have our preservation celebration right here, and that's when we made that decision. So Josh and Rachel, thank you very much. I want to thank the generous sponsors of this event, the members of the host committee who lent their names and their financial support, the patrons of this event, the many guests who are here, and again, I want to commend and thank all of the representatives of the Midtown groups who are here this evening and who do so much to make Midtown thrive. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of Harrisburg's great economic leaders and certainly a great supporter of Historic Harrisburg, someone who has made investments throughout the city, but also specifically in Midtown, including some very exciting current projects, a recipient of a preservation award just last year, Alex Hartzler of WCI Partners. Alex.
Thank you, David. Before I begin, this is Julian Hartzler, and he lives in Harrisburg. And his grandfather on his mother's side has a birthday tonight, so we will be, unfortunately, exiting for all the festivities tonight. So if you see me leaving, it's because his grandfather would also like his attention. But I've learned that giving speeches such as this, I do much better with him, because you can just forget everything I have to say and just focus on, oh, that's the guy with the kid. That was great. But I have the honor tonight to introduce our mayor, Eric Pappenfuss. Before I get that, I want to give a shout out also to Josh and Rachel. Where are you, Josh and Rachel? Yes, Josh Kessler, who could have done this. I want to say you could have done this anywhere, literally in the world, but you chose to do it in Midtown Harrisburg. And I've gotten to know them better over the last year or two. As they're going through this process, my wife and I got to tour this, I think before you were around, Julian, and how they hand strip the beams, all those things. And preservation doesn't happen by happenstance. It happens because of hard work of entrepreneurs and visionaries like Josh and Rachel. And we thank you for hosting us tonight. Guys, thanks. I think Midtown and Harrisburg in general is in this stage of a great rebirth, revitalization, and indeed renaissance. There are so many projects going on, several of them mentioned here tonight, some that have happened, some that are coming. There's a new enthusiasm and spirit for our city and for particularly this area of town. And a lot of that spirit in the last year and a half frankly, is due to new leadership at City Hall. Just like Josh and Rachel could have done this anywhere, Mayor Pappenfuss and his wife Kathy didn't have to take on the reins of government. Successful business here in Midtown, scholars in their own rights, in addition to owning a Midtown Scholar, really could have done and given their talents to any city, anywhere they wanted to, but they chose to lend their hand here. And of all the things you go through with on a day-to-day basis, I'm glad you're doing it and we're supporting you. But I do think that the mayor, his vision, his enthusiasm for good government, government that actually had a surplus in his first year, if I'm not right, 5 million? Millions of dollars in a surplus. Who heard of a surplus in Harrisburg for the last few years? Who thinks they would hear that happening? Tremendous achievement in his first year. It's really exciting to have his leadership. I think Harrisburg is poised for great success. Thank you, Julian. He's like, now it's time, Daddy, I'm done. So with that, Mayor, thank you for your leadership and thank you for being here tonight with HHA.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. And thank you, Julian. You did extremely well. It is an honor to be here. Thank you all so very much. I enjoyed preparing for this afternoon. I basically have a whole series of dates scribbled in front of me as I tried to reflect on the new Midtown Renaissance and what it meant to me and to my life and to my family's life. I want to preface this by saying that everything that has been done in Midtown by myself could not have been done without the support of my wife, Catherine, who is here. We have been a team from the beginning. And I tell you, I mark the past 13 plus years through the height of my children. And Clara was about that size when we purchased the original Midtown Scholar. She just turned 13. And it is amazing to sort of chart the passage of time. So as I was conferring with Kathy on what date did we do this, what year did we do that, we just had to remember how big our children were at the various times and where they were crawling or being held. You know, I was asked to give some personal reflections on Midtown, and I really appreciate the opportunity to sort of sit and take stock and look back over the past decade plus. As I say, it's defined my life, and I think it's been one of the great shining examples for what is possible in Harrisburg, without question. I would say the start of the modern Renaissance, and I know it goes back. See you, Julian. It goes back before that. But really, if we're going to start a toast to Harrisburg's Midtown's rebirth or modern Renaissance, we have to start with the Midtown Cinema, right? Back in 2001, I want to recognize Alan Brown and Todd Schill and all the folks, many in this room, I'm sure, who gathered together and said, let's start an art house theater in Harrisburg. What a visionary statement that was. And then, to call it the Midtown Cinema was also a pretty bold and striking thing because we went north of Riley Street. Midtown had never really been defined as north of Riley Street before that, but they did it. And I know that for my wife and myself, we were so inspired by that cinema and by the outpouring of public support for the cinema that is really what encouraged us to look at Midtown as a site, a potential site for our bookstore. And, this is just not that long ago, 2001, the pioneers of the Midtown Cinema. And I think it's also important to remember at the time, they only renovated the front of that building. And some of you may remember, and I said this when Zero Day opened, but the back was sort of out of a horror movie. It used to be a blood bank. There were beakers. No, it's true. And, storage units and tables and medical supplies. It was pretty scary back there. And now, if you look at the back of the Midtown Cinema here 15 years later, and you see what they've done with Zero Day, it's incredible. It's absolutely amazing. Zero Day is another business that could be anywhere at all, and yet they chose to be here in Midtown. and folks like Matt Tennell and John Tierney, they all need to be appreciated for their vision and their willingness to invest in this neighborhood. So I'm taking it back to 2001, and I want you to sort of journey with me over the past 15 years, at least as I remember this, because I had so much fun thinking about this today. So in 2002, we'd been living here for a few years. We'd started a book business out of our house. We were living in Shipoke at the time, a beautiful historic home. One of our first efforts to really get involved in the community was to be on the home tour, which was an amazing thing, and to learn about and appreciate the history of our home there. And we went looking for a location, a retail location in Harrisburg. Where was it going to be? Frankly, we couldn't afford the downtown, and we were looking for an affordable place which we could purchase, which we could own, and then invest in. Because I think one of the keys to small business success, Josh probably agrees with this, is owning your own real estate. You don't want to invest all this time and energy and be beholden to speculative rents or unsupportive landlords. So we were looking for a building that we could fix up, one that would be a great place for retail. And we had a young realtor at that time who I want to remember tonight as well. His name was Ray Thorne. He was a realtor for RSR. He sadly passed away a few years ago in a tragic motorcycle accident in Harrisburg. But he was a booster of this city, and he knew every place that was up for sale everywhere. And I remember he took us to what was the old Midtown post office, which at that point in time, this is now the location of Startup Harrisburg. We all know where this is, right? 1519 North 3rd Street, the old Midtown post office. We walked in, and it had been used for rock storage. They were literally storing rocks for DEP. I don't know. And the entire, it is the oddest building. It still is today. You have a first floor, which is sort of concrete cinder block rectangular structure. And then you have the second floor, which is the top half of an old Victorian frame house. And literally, I think they just did that to get a little extra space. It must have been a sight to behold when they constructed the building. They built the old post office. They got a good lease with the U.S. Postal Service, I'm sure. And then to add a little bit of extra space, they just literally must have dropped the top half of the building. I don't know if Ken Frew is here tonight, but Ken helped us research that building and find some original pictures of what it looked like as a frame home. But what I'm trying to say is, at that time, nobody saw a lot of potential for that building. It had been on the market. They were only asking, it was like somewhere in the $50,000 range. It was actually owned by Ali of Bargain Outlet fame, but now by his children. And I remember this vividly. When we came to look at the building and then make an offer, we told them that we were interested in establishing a bookstore. And they, this is a true story, assumed it was going to be an adult bookstore. They had no then I tried to explain it was going to be a scholarly bookstore, and that just, they didn't get that at all. But they sold us the building, and it was then that I got my first encounters with with contractors and roofers and trying to fix up a building there, and we ended up opening to the public in 2003. And I want to also remember somebody else who was really important to me at the time. Doesn't live here anymore, but Blair Seitz. You all remember Blair Seitz, of course, in the Seitz Gallery. He had established a sort of work group, a merchants work group for 3rd Street, invited me to participate, and I think really sort of showed me what might be possible. I remember walking the streets of Midtown with him. I mean, there had been a Main Street effort before. There had been lots of things happening in Midtown before, but it just felt to me like the potential was there for so much more. And Blair helped me see that and was very welcoming to the neighborhood. So basically, in 2003, we opened to the public. And we did something really pretty interesting then. We decided we weren't just going to renovate the building, but we were also going to commission a beautiful mural for the sign of the building. And some of you know this mural. It is today in the current bookstore. It's on the inside of the building. One of the exciting things about moving into that location was that it actually had enough space and enough of a windowless wall for a 77-foot-long mural inside, which now sort of defines everything that we do in the bookstore. But we wanted to encourage the public to look at the neighborhood differently. Originally, when we bought the post office, it was covered in graffiti. It was basically burned out, a shell of a building. It really looked horrible. We painted it, we re-roofed it, we went through HARB and redid the siding. We did all sorts of exciting things, but we determined we wanted to claim that building, create a piece of public art, and it was really important to us to do. And I remember we sort of christened the mural shortly after we opened the building, and from that day forward, we never had a problem with graffiti. We never had a problem with the neighborhood in any way. And I think people really did begin to look up and were inspired, and that was a part of what lives on today with Sprocket and all the other murals that are popping up around town that we support so much. So that's 2003. In 2004, along with my wife and a handful of other interested folks, we decided we would found Friends of Midtown. And I think one of the exciting things about Midtown, which has really led to its continuing renaissance, is the degree to which that organization, people like Sean and Don and everybody, how that organization has grown and really become that sort of glue, that neighborhood glue which holds the community together, whether it's sponsoring cleanups or it's doing, the wonderful website that it has. Everything that it does, Friends of Midtown has really grown into something very important. And it was also Friends of Midtown, which at the time, this is now 2004, we sort of commissioned that map of Midtown, which tried to move Midtown all the way to Maclay Street. Which was also a sort of radical thought. We were both north of Riley Street, and I understand there are many different neighborhoods. We just launched for the city of Harrisburg, the third city in the entire Commonwealth to join the Nextdoor network, and there are 17 neighborhoods already online, and there are many different neighborhoods just in Midtown alone. But we thought it was really important to try and give the whole area an identity, a common identity and a common perspective to try and create that neighborhood group and organization that could sort of live on and form the foundation for good things to come. So now we're up to 2004. It's pretty exciting, and we decide basically the old Women's Center, the Women's Center, which used to have pottery classes and everything else. It's now called the Carpets and Draperies Building. It said Gerber on it at one point in time. The building right there on the corner. We decided we would buy that along with a friend of ours, Ted Cannaday, who we'd also convinced to move into the neighborhood and open a little store in what is now Nellie's. And we'd open a co-op. We'd have a co-op for used booksellers. I remember replacing the roof, staining the floors, trying to get that building into something really exciting. And we had that for about a year. We were trying to create a little book row or a critical mass of getting people to come in. We began at that time a really concentrated advertising campaign to get people to come into Midtown from outside of the city. We had our first sort of brochures and other things that were being done. And that worked very well. And sort of lo and behold, the city, from a development standpoint, decided to really focus on that corridor as the home for HAC's future expansion. And no toast for Midtown or no history of Midtown over the last 15 years can really underestimate the impact that HAC has made and that the improvements associated with HAC have made. So you had an empty DEP building with rock storage. You had a relatively underutilized single HAC facility. You didn't have an urban meadow. There wasn't a lot of life and vitality, but when HAC came, and when that influence came, that really changed everything. I'm going to tell a story about Alex Hartzler now, and he's gone, so that's safe, which is that when HAC did come, the friend of ours that we had bought the Women's Center together with determined that he felt he wanted to cash out and basically sell the building. There was a lot of interest all of a sudden in that whole area for Hack's expansion. We didn't want to sell the building. We disagreed, so we decided we'd put it up for auction. And we put it up for auction, and there was a real estate. Carrie Pay came in, and I thought for sure we were going to be able to win that auction and buy that building, because I was still thinking in the depressed real estate terms of 2002, and I thought for sure, nope, well, Alex Hartzler wanted that building, and the bidding started, and it kept going up and higher, and it got up to $100,000, and then it went up to $150,000, and well, we had to stop, and he bought the building, and that was the first time I met Alex, and I was frustrated, a little frustrated at that time, and he used a bidder. He didn't even bid himself. He had a bidder do it for him, so that he could be covert during the whole thing. But then I met him afterwards, and he offered to lease us the building at a reasonable rate, and all sorts of other things. When we sold the Women's Center, we basically were sort of thinking, how can we expand the development along 3rd Street? How can we go both north and south? And my wife and I saw one more interesting opportunity in 2006, and that was to buy the building, which is now the glass factory. Do you remember, where the glass factory is? You know all the hard work that Josh has done. We decided to purchase that building, and we had this vision. The bookstore was doing well, but we needed a warehouse. We needed a place to store pallets of books and have tractor-trailer deliveries. And we decided we would purchase this building and we would fill it up like a library or a great temple of books. And this was in 2006, and this was my first experience with a structural engineer. And we hired OPA, which is ironic now because they are now doing our city's comprehensive plan, and a young architect named Bruce Quigley, and he helped us out, and he got a structural engineer in to get the building. And lo and behold, the structural engineer basically said, you are insane if you think you're going to fill this building with books. It will never hold it. So we ended up selling that building, and that building has become now the Glass Factory, which is just beautiful. If you didn't know, that was the studio of C. Rudy, the great stained glass artist of Harrisburg, who did the stained glass windows for like the Camp Curtin Memorial Church of the dying soldier being nourished by Christ. He had actually lived on 3rd Street right next to our old bookstore, where there's the parking lot now between the Women's Center and Startup Harrisburg. And it was an amazing structure, but it was not designed to hold a lot of weight. So in the wake of that, in 2007, that was the first time that I toured the Millworks building, because we were looking for another place where we could put a lot of weight. And as you see, this doesn't go up too high. It seemed like a good spot. And I remember touring with my wife, and we came in here, and if you weren't here before the Millworks became the Millworks, you have to understand what this looked like. For starters, although there was some wood flooring back here, most of the building was dirt. So all these beautiful concrete floors, which look like they've been here for years, no, they weren't there. It was complete dirt. There were old sort of tractor trailer parts and storage bins. It didn't look anything at all like that. Look how beautifully cleaned and preserved those beams were. I mean, they were there. You could see them, but you really had to look. And the day we came, it was raining like a sieve. And leave it to Josh to think to put a beer garden in the weakest part of the roof. I mean, a brilliant decision, but it was, rain was pouring down in here. The whole building was just absolutely almost unimaginable. And that same time, almost that same day, we walked up to what was then Fissel's, which is now where the bookstore is today, and many of you remember Fissel's and Chip Fissel. And the day we walked into the bookstore, walked into what is now the bookstore, and this is a true story as well, he had on his desk, we were going in, it wasn't offered for sale, there was no for sale sign, we just sort of walked in just to see if maybe possibly he might be interested in selling the building. The day we walked in, he had the sales agreement which he had decided to draw up to sell that building, and he had made that decision. It was sort of a perfect moment, a sort of generational passing. He was ready to move on, he was ready to sell, he He was impressed with all the energy and excitement for Midtown, and he sold us that building, and he let us have that building. This is 2007, and into 2008, and what happens? The economy collapses. I mean, really completely collapses. So much so to the point that I know we're beginning to think to ourselves, you know, was this investment worth it? Can we sustain it? In the midst of this tremendous economic downturn, we had put all this money invested into the new building, into fixing it up. But we knew basically if we followed the motto, if you build it, they would come. And we decided to, you know, to persevere through it all. And, you know, this is also the time when, as a countermeasure, there comes the Midtown KOZ. And the Midtown KOZ proposal, if you remember when that happened, was another pivotal moment because that's what allowed, say, the Furlough building next to historic Harrisburg to finally have the economic incentive to be fixed up. That was a burned out, abandoned building with bricks falling, you know, an eyesore for sure, and now is a beautiful, beautiful place to live. That came out of the KOZ. And I am proud to say, as part of the memories, and I've said this before too, we are the only people in the history of Pennsylvania to voluntarily take ourselves out of a KOZ. I remember going to council arguing for the KOZ in 2008, but saying it really ought to be to stimulate development that isn't otherwise going to happen. We'd already purchased the building. It was vacant and empty. We were going to fix it up anyway, so we asked to be out of the KOZ. You can question the financial prudence of that decision, but the point was that we made a strong case for that KOZ, and council did barely pass the KOZ, and that sort of jump-started economic development from then on. In 2009, the bookstore opened to the public after an awful lot of renovation. I want to mention that we spent a lot of time and a lot of thought into developing our Midtown sign, our neon sign, which we thought really part of giving, and this is an homage to the Broad Street Market sign for sure, but it was to try and give the whole neighborhood another sort of focal, iconic point. And I think we were the first neon sign in years to be developed there. And it was also then in 2009, and I confirmed this with Larry, who's right there, towards the end of 2009, after the Berg magazine, one of the most exciting things to happen in years came and was founded, that we sat down together and we decided, let's found Third in the Berg. Let's create a monthly arts walk that will have people really coming into the city and experiencing all that Midtown has to offer. And that continues to grow and is stronger really than it's ever been before. We could go on. I appreciate the chance to reminisce. I remember Mantis, of course, we fixed up the place for Mantis. Mantis is now here. Tara and Caleb and Andrew are all here in exciting, beautiful studios here in the Millworks. We brought the LGBT Center. Eventually, we purchased from the Republican Club, a building which they were using just simply as storage. And we brought in the Yellowbird Cafe, and Steph and Ammon have done such a wonderful job there. And, fast forward to where we are now. And the program says an extraordinary crescendo in 2015, and I couldn't agree more. There are so many exciting things that are happening just now. If you haven't been to the kitchen at HMAC, that project got rejuvenated, got the financing it needed, has been an amazing, amazing addition to the neighborhood. The Susquehanna Art Museum, so beautiful, so wonderful, and so long in the making, but all finally here. I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget a variety of other things. Even the Jackson Lick renovations. If you haven't seen what's happening to that housing there, that is a multi-million-dollar renovation project, all of which is happening within a critical mass here of the Broad Street Market. And as we look forward, from a city standpoint, there is more to come. It is truly a crescendo, but it's going to be a continuing crescendo. There are multiple state RCAP proposals for 3rd Street. Doug Neidick, who did so much with Greenworks and with the Campus Square building, which I haven't even mentioned, has an amazing proposal for Education Row, which will transform that area. WCI Partners has an equally transformative vision for the old Ron Brown Charter School, which has languished for years. These are projects that are going to be coming, and they're all part of this continuing crescendo. And from a city standpoint, we did something rather remarkable. We said we are going to take a stand, finally, for once in the city. We're going to take a stand about businesses that are problem businesses and that are sort of havens of illegal activity. And for the first time, 2 weeks ago, if you didn't know this already, we had a 4-hour hearing on Club 1400 with testimony offered back and forth on the record, which will eventually lead to a ruling which I think is going to have an incredible ripple effect through the whole city, which basically says we are all empowered to make sure that all businesses comply with the law and that we all recognize that businesses are a privilege, not necessarily a right in the city of Harrisburg. That's an amazingly transformative thing. The other transformative things that are coming, 2nd Street two-way is going to have an amazing effect on 3rd Street. You're going to see 3rd Street turn more into the economic corridor that it should be. The paving of 3rd Street is coming. The paving of 2nd Street is coming. A lighting project which is going to transform every light fixture in the city of Harrisburg to LED fixtures. Just the contract went to council this past week, and we're hoping to get that approved before summer recess so it can be done before the end of the year. All told, the collective investment and interest of so many people in Midtown has made this neighborhood really the engine of Harrisburg's overall renaissance, and it's something that we should all be so proud of, and it wouldn't have been possible without the collective efforts of everyone in this room. And thank you for allowing me to sort of share my memories with you, because they define my life for the past 15 years. And let's have the next 15 years bring so many more exciting things for Midtown Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you. We have 4 preservation awards. The first one will be presented by Mary Beth Stringent.
The first award goes to Lux Condominiums. If everyone doesn't know, that was Harrisburg's Masonic Temple. And it was sought out to complement the Capitol across the street. Then it became the Bardo Building, and Brick Box Development has now transformed it into 42 luxury condominiums. A little tidbit of information is that the words "Sit Lux" are engraved on the building's cornerstone, and that means "Let there be light." Accepting the award on behalf of Brick Box Development is Derek Dilks.
The next preservation award will be presented by Matt Krupp.
Thanks, David. I was actually wondering if Kwee, Elodie, and Stacy could come up here. The next award is going to go to Rubicon, which is their effort. I guess it's on the cusp of Midtown Harrisburg, but yeah. Right. So it's really an honor to get to present it to them, because my wife and I actually live at 258 North Street. We're about 4 or 5 doors down, and we've really seen the transformation that they did. They did a phenomenal job. There is nothing else like it. A little bit of background. You can follow along in your program if you like, but Rubicon, it's the newest architectural and restaurant expansion. These people have been transforming and revitalizing that block of Capitol area neighborhood since 2001. The entire 3-story facade has been restored to its historically accurate appearance with the addition of the long missing bay windows and ornate cornices. Inside, the building's been opened up to its full 3-story height, presenting a dramatic space showcasing a playfully French-inspired bar-centric restaurant. You guys did a phenomenal job. It's absolutely beautiful. The food's fantastic. The atmosphere is just untouchable. So congratulations.
The next award will be presented by Jeb Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. The award will be to the Susquehanna Art Museum. And Jack, are you here? Jack Scott? If you could come up, please. He was here. And other board members, please. Mr. Giorgione. I'm going to be a little more formal here in my presentation. Founded 25 years ago as Harrisburg's only dedicated art museum, the Susquehanna Art Museum occupied a variety of leased premises in downtown Harrisburg before seizing an opportunity to own and develop a state-of-the-art facility in the city's emerging Midtown Arts Corridor. The historic 1923 Keystone Trust Company building, most recently a branch of Fulton Bank, was acquired along with adjoining property for a sleek, contemporary-styled new wing that provides modern exhibition and educational spaces. The bank building has been restored to its original grandeur, featuring its original high-ceilinged and generous windows with marble accents and neoclassical flair. Because this new anchor on the North 3rd Street corridor breathes additional life into the growing coalescence of interrelated urban institutions and is now a metropolitan and regional draw to bring visitors to Midtown, the museum is most deserving of the Historic Harrisburg Association's 2015 Historic Preservation Award.
Thank you all. And our fourth and final preservation award will be presented by Tom Darr.
Josh Kessler, where are you? Where are you? I have the easy part tonight as Josh comes forward. And Mrs. Kessler? Yep. Okay. Because we're here. $2 million worth of 24,000 square feet of magnificence, of creativity, of design, pardon me, of ballsiness. I mean, I could read this for you, and I probably should for the camera, but the truth of the matter is it's magnificent. The food is terrific. The artist colony is outstanding. It's just a marvelous, marvelous addition to Midtown Scholar and everything else in the Midtown, and we congratulate you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. These are bronze plaques which will go prominently at the entrance to those four properties. I should mention that our preservation awards are not even restricted to the city of Harrisburg, let alone Midtown. We've given them anywhere in the region. Historic Harrisburg has always been a regional organization, but the absolute center of that region is right over here at 3rd and Verbeck Street, the heart of Midtown. Our next part of our agenda, I'd like to first of all thank our very hardworking board of directors at Historic Harrisburg who have done such magnificent work, not only for the last 43 years, but especially during the last year, and under the able leadership of our president, Mike Walsh, who I'm calling on now. Mike.
Thank you, David. Just a couple of things as part of our annual board meeting, which always takes place as part of the toast. First things first, Mary Beth just reminded me there are still many items that you can bid on as part of the silent auction. Don't let Derek Dilks get everything. His name is on everything. Please compete with Derek Dilks tonight. I'm looking for Derek to... Okay, so National Trust for Historic Preservation makes May Preservation Month. As part of that, Historic Harrisburg celebrates, advocates, and educates, as you saw here tonight. So we're excited about that. We're excited about what's been happening. We've had our challenges over the past year, but with the help, as David said, of the board of directors, with the help and the support of the 387 of you and others who are members of this organization, we've had a great year, and things are on the up and up. So we're very happy about what's happened, and I want to just take a moment to thank the board of directors personally. If they would raise their hands and be recognized, these folks deserve our appreciation. I also want to take a moment to thank David and Cindy. Let's give them a round of applause for all their work. So I said we educate, advocate, and we celebrate. We educate with those walking tours you see every month, the educational forums that are held, really impressive. We advocate by promoting preservation and restoration of our great properties. You see that through the efforts that we're doing right now with those 2 properties adjacent to PHFA that we're looking to sell so we can maintain those properties in Harrisburg, 2 of the oldest residences. You see that through the work David's doing with the Harrisburg State Hospital and trying to preserve the best of those buildings and that acreage. So we certainly get out there, we educate, we advocate, and tonight we celebrate. And we celebrate the work of the 4 award winners, and we celebrate the great things that are happening throughout Midtown. So we thank you for that. The very quick business item happens with a vote. So those of you who might have missed voting in the primary election a couple of weeks ago, you can vote tonight. We're going to vote on our slate of officers very quickly and our board members. So I'm going to invite Tom Dar, the secretary of the board, to the podium.
All right, let's rip through this. For the officers, we are renominating Mike Walsh as president, Bruce Weber as treasurer, Michael Ciappelloni as vice president, Devin Drabick as vice president, and somewhat peculiarly, I'm nominating myself as secretary. Do you want to vote now, or do you want to do the whole thing? Okay. Also, the class of 2018 for a 3-year term, ending May 2018, Matt Krupp, who is the head also of Lighten Up Harrisburg, Glow Run coming next week. Mary Beth Stringent, whom you've heard from before, Catherine Lawrence, the First Lady, Dorothy King, Bruce Weber, again, Ray Davis, Realtor par excellence. That is the slate.
So you moved it, I second it. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Are you sure? Okay. And now for the toast of the evening. I invite our acting executive director, our former executive director, our former board president, past president, everything, David Morrison, and the mayor of Harrisburg, who will join us in the toast.
Thank you, everybody. This is the finale of our program, and we really thank you for being part of it. We have a champagne toast, which I think is being passed to you. I hope that it is. And if not, please help yourself. There's complimentary champagne for all. And if some of you hardworking board members would help pass the champagne, that would be appreciated. While you are helping yourself, I just want to say that tonight's celebration acknowledges so many organizations, individuals, property owners, and businesses who have contributed to making Midtown what it is today, going all the way back 160 years, the founding of the Broad Street Market, many past organizations which are no longer in Midtown, like the Jewish Community Center, the former Forster Street YMCA. They're all listed in your program, and I'm not going to mention them all. But in the interest of time, I'd like you all to raise a glass to Midtown and to Harrisburg. Thank you all very much. The silent auction will remain open until 7:15, and thank you, Mike, for encouraging everybody to enter some final bids. Thank you again for coming.